Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Traditionally Speaking. My name is Tom, and I'm joined this week with my friend Joe to talk about a new topic for Christmas, Christingles.
Now, I've heard the term and I even had to do some research on it, but I'll tell you, Christingles is not something you see in the US, certainly not in any great quantity. And I'll bet you most Americans have no idea what they are or what they're for or what they symbolize. So why don't you go ahead and start and just give us the history and background, and particularly what they mean in Scotland.
Okay, well, the Christingle, I say it's a new topic. In actual fact, it's centuries old because the Christingle was introduced to Britain really through Moravian churches, generally before the World Wars, early 20th century. But they have their origins all the way back in the 18th century in Germany, because at that point, what happened was they would wrap a red ribbon around a candle and use that as a symbol of Christ's light to the world at Christmas time. And what's happened over the years is it's become more widely used in different denominations. And also, you know, they're used in without the religious symbolism in secular context as well. So basically what happened was the first Christingle went back to 1747, and it comes from actually the German term Christkindl, which means the little Christ child. And it was something that was used by children in churches, which at Christmas time to celebrate the Christmas story in a symbolic way.
Now, are they like decorations you put in windows, or what exactly do you do with these? Where do they show up?
Well, what happens is, I mean, they're traditionally used in sort of church Sunday schools and things like that. And there are various different elements to a Christingle. So the most visible one is an orange, and the orange represents the world. There is then a candle, which is pushed into the center of that orange, and that is used to represent Christ as being the light of the world. There's a red ribbon around the center of the orange, and that's sometimes a paper frill as well, and that is always red, and that represents the blood of Christ. And then there'll be dried fruits or sweets that are skewered and pushed into the orange, which represents the fruit of the earth. Now, in more recent years, you tend to find that glow sticks are used rather than candles. And the reason for that is because obviously when they get hot, the wax melts, and if children are holding them, obviously it avoids them burning their fingers.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So kind of like we used to put candles on Christmas trees, which is not exactly a safe feature to do.
Yeah. The beauty of it is, you know, they can be used for all sorts of different purposes. They're often used by churches for decorations. Many people have them in their homes. Sometimes they're sold by churches for charity, but not all churches do that, because some believe that if you think that God's love is for everyone, you wouldn't sell it as a symbol, if you like. You know, you would give them away. So it depends on the church.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when you say that they decorate, do they put them all over the place, or is it just like one or two, or how do they appear or show up?
Well, sometimes you will find that churches will have them as part of their Advent services in the Sundays leading up to Christmas time. Sometimes you will see them in individual church services if your church has sort of community services and things. In homes, they'll be used as Christmas decorations. And the other thing, of course, is that they're often personalised, because you have these sweets in them, which are obviously meant to represent the fruits of the world. They can take any different form. They can be marshmallows. Dolly mixtures are quite popular over here as well. So they can licorice, all sorts. They can all be used. So they're often quite highly personalised, you know, to the individual that put them together.
It's almost like your Christmas crackers, with you put in whatever you feel like putting in.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I mean, that's one of those things that you know, especially for kids, put them together at Christmas. They always have a chance to have different elements included in them. You know, so you have that traditional aspect, but you also have that chance to customize them as well.
Now, do you eat the fruits or the sweets or anything, or do you just leave them as part of the decoration and toss the whole thing out after Christmas?
I think it depends on the individual. Some people, keep them solely as a Christmas decoration. They'll keep them for a couple of weeks and then get rid of them. Some people will keep them until Christmas time and then possibly eat the orange and the sweets then. So it depends.
Oh, yeah, because I was gonna say, it's almost like our Halloween pumpkins. We carve them, but we don't use them afterward because they kind of get a little soft.
Hmm.
So now, where you is this still a huge thing in Scotland, and has it spread to other countries? Do you know?
It seems to be predominantly a European tradition and specifically a German tradition. But over the years, it's become more widely used. You tend to find in Scotland, they've been adopted really since about the late 1960s by the Church of Scotland, which is Scotland's own established church.
Mhm.
And they're becoming more common now amongst different denominations, as being a kind of ecumenical Christmas decoration, largely
Right.
because of their symbolism. So yeah, I mean, I would say predominantly you tend to find there's some variation between churches. Some I've noticed in recent years have been using cloves rather than sweets, which obviously gives it a slightly different scent, and that's been quite a popular trend.
Well, I'll tell you, the smell of oranges and cloves is always, something that just warms the cockles of my heart. I mean, and that would be a lovely thing to start in the US. So now, and again, you broke it down into the various parts, but could you do that again for our American listeners? So you basically start with an orange
Hmm.
and then what?
Right, you will have a candle or a glow stick, which is pushed into the center top of the orange, so that it basically is right at the apex of it. You will have a decorated red ribbon, which goes around the equator of the orange, if you like, and you would have something like maybe like a cocktail stick with various different sweets or other decorations, which are around the sort of the upper quadrants of the orange as well.
Now, how many of those do you put in?
Traditionally, there would be four, one for each quarter, if you like, at the top.
So
But
kind of like designating the compass points of the world.
yes, absolutely. But that's not always the case. Sometimes people have more than that. They could have maybe eight, depending on if they want them to be in every aspect of the orange. So that can happen too.
Well, there you have it. For all of us Americans out here, something new to try for a tradition. And, as Tom had mentioned, these have been around since the 18th century. So, I mean, it's something that just has never really caught on big in the US. We celebrate sending fruit from Florida to the States when I was younger. Boy, that used to be the big thing, is to get a grapefruit or an orange or other fruits from Florida. But now here's a whole new way to use them. And since, now you can pick up an orange from almost any grocery store, as well as it sounds like some pretty easy materials to put this together and kind of fun. And then when your friends come over, you can explain to them exactly what a Christingle is.
And I mean, I suppose the other benefit of it is, I mean, it is used quite widely now to raise money for, all sorts of causes. The Children's Society raised just north of 1.2 million a few years ago,
Wow.
um, which was all used to help vulnerable young people across the country. So there is a worthy sort of charitable side to it as well.
It just sounds like there are a lot of wonderful things you can do with this. And yeah, I hadn't thought about the charitable aspect, but I'd much rather see schools do something like this than do gift wrap or something on that order. So, and we certainly have enough people that need a little charity nowadays, don't we, Tom?
Well, the beauty of it is, I mean, as years have passed, there the kind of thing that are now constructed by people who have a religious faith, people who don't have a religious faith, whereby it's not the symbolism that matters to them, but the fact that, it's something that's being made for a good cause. So, in that sense, there's a very inclusive aspect to them.
So it kind of, makes it more of a secular gift or thing to do at the holidays versus
Yeah.
a purely religious one.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's broadening its appeal now in ways that perhaps wasn't the case maybe even 10, 20 years ago.
Although I gotta say, I like the idea of it showing the light of Christ coming, because that is what Christmas is all about. And even, I constantly remind my people and the fans that it's still about Christ. It's not about just, Santa Claus and gifts and, dinners and that kind of thing. So I kind of like the symbolism on this because it is a little bit more traditional and a little more, old fashioned, if you will. So I kind of love this, but I'll tell you, whether you want to do it for charity or you want to just decorate your home with something new so you can talk to your friends about it, I think it's a great idea. So now is this still going on through other parts of Europe? Do you know?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's very popular in places like Austria and Germany where the tradition started. But the beauty of it is, of course, it's such a simple but powerful act of symbolism that it's transferred across to places like Scandinavia and Italy and various other places as well. So in that sense, I think it's probably still continuing to spread now.
Well, and it's certainly a whole lot less expensive than some of the other traditions we have at Christmas nowadays.
But of course, as you rightly say, so many traditions may have possibly lost their symbolism over the years, but so many of them all hark back to the original Christmas story because initially it was Christ's Mass. So, so many of these things like holly and ivy, and I know we're going to talk about gingerbread in a later podcast. All of these things all point back to the original Christmas story.
And and that is the whole point of traditionally speaking, is we're trying to show people in all countries, but certainly in Scotland and the US, that there are a lot of wonderful traditions out there that shouldn't be forgotten and shouldn't be stopped. And I'll tell you, with kids nowadays, they're so into the gadgets and the electronics and that kind of, it doesn't hurt to stop and kind of go backwards a little bit and do something more simplistic like this and talk about the symbolism behind it.
And I suppose that's the beauty of Christmas traditions, because some, like the Christingle, have been around for hundreds of years, but it may just be something new that you want to add to your own Christmas celebrations.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you, this is why we're doing this. Again, I had never even heard about it, and it wasn't until I did some research for our podcast here. And again, I'm going to invite our listeners to tell us other traditions that they may do that we haven't touched on yet, although we may. We've got an awful lot of topics ahead of us. But we'd love to hear what you do at your home, or what was started through your ancestors and such that you still keep going. So, I mean, that is the fun of Christmas, is to enjoy the holiday. And we hope you're going to enjoy listening to these podcasts to give you more ideas and more ways to do that.
Yes, I think, as you say, it's one of those things, isn't it? There's always something new to discover, even if it's a very ancient tradition. There's always something new about Christmas that perhaps we hadn't known about, or we're just learning about now. So who knows? There's always a new tradition to be found.
And the wonderful thing about Christingles too is there's no dangerous. You don't need knives or electricity or anything else that could harm kids. So kids can absolutely work on these. And you had mentioned the charity side of this, and that would be a great thing for kids to do, is to create these and then do it for a charity that they want to support.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's all different sort of applications and places you can check out on the internet that have Christingles in a fundraising role. But as you say, something that's very safe to make. A lot of people have replaced the candle now with a glow stick or some other kind of slightly safer alternative, and a lot of people get a lot of fun out of them.
It sounds fascinating. I hope to see more of them in the US, and I may start a few of my own. Well, I'll tell you, that's fascinating. And do you have any closing remarks on this, Tom?
Well, just to say that I hope people have found it interesting. It's one of those things that has kind of moved beyond being solely a religious symbol to something that anyone can enjoy, no matter what their religious beliefs might be. And ultimately, isn't that what Christmas is all about? Bringing people together.
Well, I want to thank you for enlightening us about this and explaining how this came about and what it is. And I'll tell you, we're going to have a lot of interesting subjects like this. So stay tuned. Uh, I know the next one that Tom and I are going to work on is something that's near and dear to my heart. So make sure you keep tuning in, because we're going to have different subjects with every podcast.
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I hope you found it of interest, and also that you'll come and join us again soon.
Thanks to everyone for joining us. And again, as we said before, give us your thoughts, your comments, and your traditions. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, this is Santa Joe signing out.
Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to speaking to you again soon.